excited to have you on, Brian. I think I say this about everyone, but I really am.
Good, me too. So
Great. You are just going to help actors really bust through this huge myth that they have when it comes to trying to find the right agent, and you are literally the perfect person to do so. So let's get it going. So this is a topic that's really going to bust the whole thing wide open, because actors feel a sense of discomfort and shame when it comes to having and finding representation. Finding an agent is a big sticking point, right? And finding the right one has the potential to actually elevate your career and take you to a different level. So will you just touch on the negative mindsets that actors have, the perspectives that come up in this season of searching for actors?
Yeah. And I love the way you describe it, the season of searching, because what I find is that actors usually fall into some kind of pattern or cycle of like, okay, I'm going to get it up to reach out to agents and managers right now. And okay, it didn't work. So I'm butthurt about that. So I'm going to give it a second. I'm going to try to get it up again. Or I just booked something and now's the perfect time for me to reach out, or it's right before pilot season, or it's episodic, or we have all these things of like the right time to reach out. And, I think these are just myths that we've inherited from actors past and I also think they're myths that we've inherited from, we all grew up with parents or some form of parents, and we took on our agent and manager has some kind of parental role to us or can validate us in the business. We give them a little extra power that we wouldn't give to maybe a casting director, because we understand that a casting director is casting a specific job. And so actors are very clear, like, oh, I'm not right for the job, even though we might feel disappointment, like I'm not right for the job.
Right.
A manager agent is supposed to inherently believe in your talent. So when they are saying no, or I think worse yet, when you hear silence, which is often what happens, it feels like someone is denying your talent altogether. And it's so painful and normal, just like, there's nothing wrong with anyone for having these feelings. It's just so normal, because in order to find representation, we have to put so much skin in the game. We have to say like, here's everything I've done so far. And do you think I've done enough? And do you think where I went to school is good enough? And have I done enough for you to believe that you can help me get work?
Yes.
And this is probably very close to the conversation we're having in our head with ourselves often. And so because we suddenly have an object to put all that energy toward. And so agents and managers are not asking for all of this, but our psyche is kind of asking for a place to put those feelings. And so the agent manager hunt becomes this so much bigger than what it truly is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I see that. And I can absolutely, what you've done is just broken down how it happens and why it happens. So it's okay if that's how you're feeling, but I love the fact that you've made it clear that these emotions are what we inherently have. And when you find someone to dump them on that can make you feel better, you're like, hey, agent, like me, love me, help me.
Right.
So I love that.
Or it gives you or I think it also gives you like some modicum of reaching out to representation is vulnerable, and I have a little bit of control because I know who that person is to me, right? I've made them into someone that I understand. And the truth is, and this is the truth of who you are as a human being, whether you are an actor or not, is they're a human being, you know nothing about them. The stories you make up in your head are all a bunch of stories. They have nothing to do with who that person is. And so what happens is we actually don't give managers and agents often the dignity of being a human being.
Wow.
We kind of steal that away from them. We yank that from them and make them into a transaction.
Wow.
And that's not who anybody wants to be. No actor is doing this because I really just want, like, no one's trying to make them into a cash register or a machine, but we kind of can do that because this is such a slippery slope. And then what pains me is that, you'll meet an actor who is fabulously talented and could be out there auditioning with the best and most incredible jobs and could be booking and all the things, and they don't have representation and they've tried a few times. And I just think that often leaves a scar of some sort, or they heard from one agent and it left a scar, or one agent said, reach out to me in a few months, and all their hopes are pinned on that in a few months agent.
Right.
And to me, that is, you were born to act. That is your purpose in this lifetime. And so by kind of focusing your whole journey onto that one person, you're losing the scope of the rest of why acting is important to you. And that's why people are always like, what's your why? What you used to get in touch with your why. I think that's great, getting in touch with your why. But I also think we need to be careful of, rather than picking that up, like some people will say, like, well, just let it go. And I would say, great, letting it go is one skill. What if we don't pick it up in the first damn place? What if we don't pick up that the manager or agent is the answer to all of them? So like if we're going to try to get better in our self-awareness, it's around not picking it up rather than letting it go.
100%. Let's go to the root. How about you just don't pick it up? I love that. That's so powerful. So in line with don't pick it up, like what are the other ways that actors can overcome this inherent, what you talked about, this idea of feeling like all of their hopes and their dreams are pinned on it, and the scarring element of it? What would you give as a really quick tip that actors can do to unpack that and unlearn that?
I might come at this from a different angle, and you'll tell me if I answer the question or not. Okay. So one of the things that I think about when you say that is be grateful for a no. Like I love an actor getting a no from a manager or agent, or a not right now, because it lets the actor be free from trying to continually knock on that door. And then it gets to say, okay, well, all the people who have been silent or not said yes yet are the people I'm going to focus on. And thank goodness for this no. And I would be super generous and thankful to the person who says that to you. I cannot tell you the number of actors who I have had get meetings after getting a no, because they say to the person, thank you, something like, thank you so much for getting back to me. You know, it's sometimes we don't even hear back from people when we're reaching out in a situation like this. And so it helps me stick with my path and know where to go next just from getting an answer from you. And this is a small business, and I'm sure our paths will cross one day. Take good care until then. Like that is the kind of gratitude that I want you to not just know how to write. I'm sure that great, write down what I wrote and say that in an email, but not just write, but I want you to feel that.
Right.
I want you to feel, thank God that freaking Carol told me that I am not the client for her, because I don't want to end up with Carol, who's kind of mediocre on me anyway. I want someone I actually believe if you don't get no's when you reach out to managers and agents, then you did something wrong. Someone needs to say no, and someone needs to say, I don't like how you reached out to me. Like you should have done it this way. Because if you're not cutting a sharp enough shape in the room, you're just gray, you're just black and white. It's like, we need it to feel like the red dress is walking into the room. Like, right? So, and for you to cut that red dress shape, you have to be willing to like put some skin in the game, to not make it just like generic actor email or generic reach out, right? You have to really put yourself into it. And that is why this is the most bizarre thing everyone's going to hear today, probably. I think that the most inherently necessary thing when reaching out to managers and agents is self-care.
Oh my God.
Because each email, each reach out, each response carries with it a promise from your heart that is connected to your purpose around being able to have the bigger impact you were meant to have in this lifetime. Because we all know managers and agents are going to have access to auditions you're never going to be able to get on your own.
Yeah.
And what we also know is those are the auditions you want, because you know a bigger stage or a bigger screen or more screens is going to make more impact, right? Yes. And so we have to be so mindful that like, okay, I'm going to get it up and I'm going to reach out to agents and and then you get a meeting and you're like, who am I again? Okay, I'm going to this. Like you've already depleted yourself. And so much of what I focus on during this process is how we lean into taking care of ourselves during it. Because the last thing we want is you getting like 12 meetings and then being a dipshit. I hope I can say dipshit in all those meetings. Like I want you to feel so, because what happens is when we have that pressure on ourselves and we're in a meeting, we've all done this before. Guilty. You're in a meeting and you're just like, I'm kind of on autopilot. I'm kind of listening to them. I'm kind of a little bit worried about what I'm going to say next more than I'm listening to them. Okay. I think I'm doing okay. Yeah, I think I'm doing it. That was a good answer. Oh, I'm good just now. Oh, that was not the right thing to say. That is right. And then you leave the meeting and you call your mom or you call your best friend and they say, how'd the meeting go? And you go, you know, I'm not sure. I don't know. I think it went okay. You have no idea because you were so plugged into yourself. Wow. You didn't experience the human being across from you.
So good.
And so now you're more likely to make a shitty decision about who you sign with. Because the only thing you were listening to was the tape in your head instead of how is this person showing up to me? Do I like the way I feel when I'm around them? Could I call this person when I'm suddenly on set and they said, we need you to take your top off for the next shot? And that's not something we talked about before. Like those are the feelings I wanted you to check in with during the meeting. So and one of the ways that I say to free yourself up from this, I'm just rolling right now, Lola. Is that okay? Because I'm just really inspired. Right
is it okay? Heck yeah, go ahead. Roll, baby, so roll.
The other thing one of the things that I think is so important is when you go to a meeting, write this down in your heart. Use this for dating if you're single and you're looking for a mingle. It is during the meeting during the date. I don't want anyone to confuse that like managers and agents would ever have a romantic element to it, but I'm just saying it is a very similar energy that I'm talking about, which is when you go to a meeting, already be a yes. What I mean by that is already be there with the mindset of, I'm going to work with this person.
Right.
Don't bring the question into the room for yourself. So instead of it being an initial meeting, it's like your second meeting. You're talking about your career. You're talking about what's next. You're talking about making sure they get to know you better. You're not asking the question, should I work with them? You will not become less intelligent because you leave this question in your car or on the subway. You will become more intelligent because all the other parts of you will be lit up and able to receive. When you leave that meeting, then you ask the question. But while you're there, I can't wait to work with this person. This is going to be great. And you will just be, because then what happens, this is the real reason why, that person, whether they can acknowledge it consciously or not, will begin to show up differently in that meeting with you. And you'll get to see, who is this real person? What do I feel like? Now, I want to be really clear. I am a reverend in a non-denominational way. I very much believe in spirituality. So oftentimes I'm driven to the more compassionate representation out there. You do not have to want a friend who is your agent or manager. I don't want to make that has to be the story. You might want someone, I just want them to get me a lot of auditions and feel like they fight for me and that they care about fighting for me. Great. That is still a human being who has to care about fighting for you, even if they're a shark. Right. So I just want to make sure that this doesn't mean we all have to feel like every relationship is skipping through the fields and having brunch, having mimosas every Sunday with your manager and agent. That's not what I'm saying. You can have that if you want.
Would be nice.
But what I'm also saying, right. But I'm saying that our humanity needs to be in the room, and we leave our humanity out of the room when we bring the question into the room. I don't think I answered your question, Lola.
You really did, because the mindset of, because that mindset of, which is a limiting belief, really, the mindset of, am I good enough, that validation piece that we're pinning on other people. What you've done is say, once you, number one, care about yourself, focus on that self-care part. And also, if you do get to an audition room, a meeting, a place with a meeting, if you take that sort of desperation for validation out of it and come in with the presumption that it's already done, you show up with a different energy and you come in feeling more confident and you can put your best foot forward. So all of that ties in. So that was a perfect way to really break down how you can start to break through those negative mindsets that you might have when looking for representation. So that was great. Amazing. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. So,
and I just want to, can I jump into one thing you said that I think is so important that I want to underline, because you said it does give you a sense of confidence. And what I want everyone to hear is, it's not a puffed up, inauthentic confidence to do this. And that's what I think everyone hates about themselves. Like, you hate yourself when you're doing that. Like, everyone hates themselves. I'm acting cooler. I'm acting too cool for school. This is not really who I am. We don't like ourselves when we're like that. No. And so this isn't about puffing yourself up. This is actually relaxing into knowing that you are creative, resourceful, worthy, and whole in the meeting. And just by leaving the question out of the room, it allows you to do that and to be present for them. Because we also don't want to be delusional and like, I'm the bee's knees, my career is perfect, everything is wonderful. Because the problem with that version of you don't need an agent. Yeah. Like, the agent's like, I guess, I don't know why we're having this meeting, because you are there is no vulnerability. There's no room for me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But what you spoke about, which I think, puts the statement that you've just made into action, is the fact that you said authenticity. Like, what you move with and what you champion is being authentic, right? But you're asking to future pace. You're asking to imagine yourself in this position without the pressure of, do you want me? Do I want you? Take that away from it and communicate as if you've made that decision already. So that's more of a vision as opposed to a act of, I have it all and I need you not. Like, that's, I think. Correct. Yeah.
Totally really good. Well said. Really well said, Lola. And the thing that I think you also have to bring into the room is, if you're really being authentic and you're leaving the question out of the room, it will give you the space to say something like, well, looking at my resume, you'll see that I have no TV credits. And part of the reason why I think it's so great that we're meeting today is because I haven't been able to get in any of the television casting directors' rooms on my own. Now, I've done workshops and stuff with Celine Dion and Stevie Nicks and Dua Lipa, but I haven't had auditions for them. And that's kind of why I was reaching out to you in the first place. So different, right? Because what we usually, when I don't look at my resume, don't look at my resume. Don't notice that I don't have TV credits. Please, let's not talk about it. Like, right.
So
that's the game we're
good.
playing inside.
And it's a game
right?
of power. That is such a powerful stance to have. Like, this is where my deficits are. And that is why I need your help as the pro to help me get there. It's a team. That is speaking like you are a team. I love that.
Exactly. And what I sometimes, and Lola, this is the sneaky part, because most actors know, like, you got to kind of know your brand, or you need to know your type. Like, we kind of we know that homework. That homework is like, that's like kindergarten to me, because like the MFA degree of knowing yourself and your business is knowing where the agent is going to help you first, and being able to articulate that. And that's the agent go, can I do that for that person?
Oh, that's so
because
good.
They need to ask that question. If they don't ask that question, then they're going to say yes to you for the wrong reason. Like, you need to make sure that they hear, like, looking at my resume, right? We get a little generalized when we want to feel safe. So we're just like, well, now that you see my resume, don't you want to just get me audition? You just want me? No.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what you just said is the best thing I think I've heard all my life, because what you're saying is you're giving somebody a clear path to what success looks like for you. If you can come in the room and be like, this is where I want to go. This is where I am now. I see you as the bridge between here and there. Can you do that? That's completely different, because if someone is like, yes, I can. Aren't you paired with the perfect person? Isn't everything glorious?
And what I think there's a little bit, I'm going to add a little, because you kind of broke it down into a beautiful formula here. I'm going to add a little piece of it too, which is you kind of have to bring some humility to it as well. So what I mean by that is, so you saw my resume, I don't have TV credits. That's what I really want right now. So I'm doing workshops, so some people know me, but I'm not able to get into the audition rooms. So my suspicion of why we would be great together is because I would like to get into some of those rooms, but you might have another idea when you're looking at my resume, what might be next for me instead. Maybe you saw something different there. I'd love to hear that.
Oh my goodness.
Right. So it allows them to do their job, because we don't want to say, let me tell you what your job is. We want to say, here's what I think we might do. What do you think?
Step in, right? Oh my goodness. Right. I just want a round of applause that, because is anybody, I know that nobody watching is doing this. Like, nobody's coming into that audition room, because to be honest, I think if we underscore it, that takes a lot of confidence, not cockiness, but confidence. It takes confidence to be able to see what your career looks like and not be ashamed of it, to actually speak about it openly and ask for the help. That takes a lot of confidence to be able to ask for help. It's vulnerability, just like you said before, in a humble way. Come to a teammate and be like, I need your assistance. Can you do this for me? Oh my God, it's so good. And
Lola, what you just said, I think, is the magic I want to make sure everyone hears. No one is doing this. So when you do this, no matter if you had 0 credits on your resume, you look like a freaking baller, because you are an actor who isn't afraid to talk about their career.
Oh my God.
And that is something that managers and agents, you must realize. Remember, we started this talking about the mindset that most actors are walking into the meetings. So let's just make a generalized rule, like 8 out of 10 meetings are looking like the person looking for validation when they go to the manager. So if you can just turn this one piece of it for yourself, you are going to just land more authentically. And I want to just keep coming back to this. So just so you guys know, the squawking pterodactyls in the background are the wild peacocks that live in Pasadena. So it's more beautiful than you think, but the sound is horrible. Is the trick of this is it is not performative. Like we said, it's about authenticity.
So good. Wow, that blew my mind. I mean, we've gone for how to push past negativity and walk into a more positive state of mind, but Brian has literally laid down the path for that success path, like when you are in the room. So that was just incredible. Thank you for that, Brian. Okay, so you've helped many actors find great representation. And what do you think are the key ingredients that you can underscore that really lead to results?
Yeah. So obviously taking that meeting in the way we've kind of described, which is that knowingness of yourself.
Right.
The first piece, and this is the piece that surprises actors, and some actors don't want to do it. And so this is a bit of a challenge. I think it is important to take a radical and fiercely honest look at who you have been thus far in your career that has brought you to the moment when you think you are the most ready for representation, which is when you're raising your hand and saying, hey, I want representation. And what that means to me is,
right.
Yeah, let me say, a radical and fiercely honest look at who you have been in your career up until the moment that you start looking for representation. Wow. Now, let me explain why. and I'm not trying to just put on rose-colored glasses here, but if we as a collective can believe that the universe, God, Buddha, Oprah, whatever you believe, is consciously conspiring in your favor all the time.
Right.
If you say that phrase, things happen for a reason, that is like Diet Coke version of this kind of spirituality. Like that's what this is, that things are lining up the way they are meant to. Then we have to also believe that you haven't had great representation up until this moment for a good reason.
Right.
For some reason that we don't know. And we don't have to get to the heart of that reason. We don't have to find that piece out. But what we do need to be able to find is, who have I been in my career where I've really showed up for my calling, where I've really said yes to acting, and where are the places where I might have been hurt, bruised, or took something in a way that it wasn't intended that left a mark.
Right.
So, you worked with a director who said, you're always going to play funny ladies. And you're like, so I'm always going to play funny. And you're like, oh, I guess I can't say yes to my dramatic side. Or you didn't get that part in high school. And yes, this can go back as far as high school or grade school. And it told you something about yourself that you committed as truth. And this is like, wait. We're talking about representation? Yes. Because when you take this fierce, right. When you take this stock of yourself, when you get to that meeting, that confidence that we're talking about is not fabricated, because you are owning the receipts of who you've been up until this moment in your career.
That's good.
You're not afraid to talk about it.
Yeah. That's so good. That's so good.
Right. So that's one piece. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
That's part one, right? We're going out of order. So part three is that meeting. Part one is that fierce taking stock of who you are. And then the middle, the messy middle, let's call it that right now, is where like we write the email, we create the follow-ups, we create a database. That's all that piece of in there. That's when you're doing the do of reaching out. And to me, I believe that email is a great place to reach out to managers and agents. I've had it work all around the world. So if you are somewhere and deciding this Yahoo Brian in California might as well be sucking on crystals the way he's talking, listen to me. This has worked in Germany and in France and in England. So I just want to make sure that in Canada. So just want to make sure no one's in Argentina. So just like, don't write a story here that this won't work for you. I'm just going to put a tiny lesson right here, Lola, which is a lot of times we suffer from terminal uniqueness. Whoa. I am so different from everyone else. What works for other people won't work for me. And terminal uniqueness is a insidious form of playing the victim. And it's so sneaky. It is so sneaky because I want to hold you and say, oh, that sucks that happened that way. And at the same time, I need to say, and we can get back up because this is what happens in the business. Like, this isn't only about you right now. This is kind of, the businesses can be tough at times. Like, so we have to like, you are so courageous for going out there and doing that. And I just want to make sure, no, it isn't because there's something wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. You are perfect. Right. So we have to be careful of that getting in the way of saying what Brian's talking about today won't work for me. So in the middle phase, as you're writing, I believe you should start with some kind of this is like an 8-week course that I teach. So I'm going to give you guys like the Cliff Notes version right now. Right. So I don't want you to feel shortchanged. I just would not be able to do a good job of teaching it all right now. So let me just explain, right? So I believe starting off with a very vulnerable email, authentic, vulnerable email, and then following up like a week later, and then following up like a week later after that. Now, what I know is many actors will lose steam after that first vulnerable email. And the reason why is I just put my heart and soul into that email. How can I ever send a second email? They must not have read it for a reason or whatever, or they didn't like me.
Yeah.
And I cannot tell you the number of times. So, and I will say that seasonally, but not predictably, I see that managers and agents are responding to the first email all the time, or they're suddenly responding to the third email. And it's not like in the spring they do it this way, in the summer they do it that. It's like literally I'll be talking with all of my clients like, hey, everybody, right now it looks like managers and agents seem to be responding to the second email right now. So there's no way to predict this. It's the summer right now while we're recording this. So right now I can say that most of my clients are seeing it happen on the second or third email. Why? Because we've been locked up in pandemic. We all want to go to the beach, right? Like, we're 100%. Not seeing we're not, right?
100%.
So 3 emails that you kind of send out. And then in the consistency of the follow-up has got to be something that you create for yourself, because I think the magic is in the follow-up.
Right.
And remember, during the process of following up, here's why it's so sneaky. You're going to be getting people saying, no, you did this wrong. Ask me in 2 years. Yes. Great. or talk to me later, or maybe send me more stuff. There's like 5 different answers. You get no, yes, tell me more, or no. I like to call the no's no, not yet.
Yeah.
Tell me more, yes, silence.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so we have to prepare ourselves for each of those answers, including silence. Like, what is our response to silence? So I can say that, inside of my program, people get like a 35% response rate, which is huge because you and I both know people have reached out and gotten 0 response, right?
Right.
And I just love a no. I love getting a freaking no.
Clarity, just like you said.
Yeah. Right. And then the other piece of all this that is so important, in my view, there are people who are not going to agree with this. So get ready to hear something you might not like. I think target lists are BS. I think target lists are a waste of time. I think you're wasting your time with the target list. Stop doing it. Stop doing it. Stop doing it. Okay. That's the song we're going to sing. Now, someone's going to tell you to
break the song down now.
Yeah. Let me break down the song. I don't know who the heck you think you are, that you know enough about all the managers and agents in your city that you could possibly come up with the right ones that would be a match for you. To me, this is like opening Tinder and picking 8 random people before looking at their profiles. Because you haven't learned any, or going on a date, you know nothing about them. You're just randomly clicking without even reading their profile even.
Yeah.
You're saying, I'm going to pick these 8 random people. Sure. Can you get a little bit of information from your friend? Can you go down a black hole on IMDb? Sure. Could you find out that someone in your acting class has one of those agents who's working for them? Great. And then you can put together this bizarre, delicate glass menagerie of 8 agents or 12 agents that you think might be the perfect people for you. And you're going to get it up, really try to get it up for those 12 agents. And you're going to do this whole thing and nothing came through for 12 agents. And you're going to take 4 more months off and then try to do it again for 12 agents. So over the course of a year, maybe you've hit 48 agents altogether.
Yeah.
I asked my actors to cast a really wide net.
Right.
And the philosophy behind that, my philosophy behind that is, I don't want to control the hand of the universe. Right. The universe has got much better intentions for me than I can ever have.
Right.
So if I show up, if I stand out in a field and I let all the stars shine down on me, the sky is so much more beautiful than if I try to zero in on only 8 stars and make all the rest black. I can let and whatever star then they get to choose me out of that wider net. They get to look at what I've put into my email and say, oh, I like what she's got going on. I can choose her.
Right.
Now, and there will be managers and agents that say this is the wrong way to do it. Great. I love getting someone telling me it's the wrong way. My response to managers and agents is always, when you guys are ready to take out a full page ad in the New York Times and say that we are consistently wanting actors to send us emails in this exact way, then we will do it. Until then, we're going to do it the way that we know works. So I get a little protective of my people in that way. But so I really believe in casting a wide net. And I will tell you, I wonder if I could say this is true for every actor. I don't feel comfortable saying that because I want to have integrity around my work.
Right.
But of the 542 and counting actors that I found representation, I can strongly say that a majority of them have landed with managers and agents that would never have ended up on their target list.
Got you.
And this isn't to say they went like with some podunk shitty agent. That's not what's happening. Because like I said, they've gone to these meetings with a lot of wherewithal. And I give them like a plan to mathematically figure out if that agent's doing a good job by looking at their IMDb and stuff. Right. So they're not ending with crap people. They're ending with great people that never would have been on a target list in a million years.
Got you. Yeah. That's pretty powerful to unpack the idea of the process that you're using to maybe hone in on which agents might be the part of the problem. So that's really, really great. Yeah, I mean, I think you've already touched on this really, because I mentioned that I think there are 3 stages of agent acquisition, right? Which you've kind of, blown through there. So the research stage is when someone's looking for who could possibly be. That's what you've just touched on now. The pitching stage, which is the email and actually reaching out and having all of the stuff, which you've touched on as well, the right way to do that. And then the last stage is the meeting, which is in the room, which you've also touched on. So what would
Lola, wait, I want to just grab back, because you said this, the research part is about them, but it's also about you.
Yeah.
Let me look back at my career and see what things have not happened that I would like to have happened, and where did I get in the way. So make sure that research is not just them. It's I think it's actually deeper into you in some way.
So powerful, because in knowing what is happening here, you can really like more properly align with what you're looking for. So that's a really great way to do that. So good. I brushed through it just so I can get it back to you and say, what would you say actors struggle with most within that? Because I know how you teach and what you teach covers the full breadth of that process. But what would you say if you were to, you know, see 10 actors right now and pick out what you think their sort of the sticking point is in this process? What would you think it is?
There's two that come up. I'm going to kind of take them in chronological order. The first one is looking at your story and capturing where you really showed up for yourself and where you didn't. And it can become seductive, to become fascinated by yourself and get stuck there. And really start to dredge up stuff. And my family thought this, and to just I'm not saying you shouldn't go deep in this process, but it can become a little bit like, we're not writing a one-woman show here. We're on our way to getting representation. So we just have to kind of keep the container of representation in mind, so that it doesn't become, I now need to go to therapy 5 times because I'm looking at myself right now. I'm not saying therapy is bad. I love therapy, but I'm saying like, we need to be able to look at it from a position of, let me just find out what pieces of the story would be necessary for a manager or agent to understand. And believe me, writing these kinds of emails can sometimes make you sound delusional without help, but I'm just wanting to make sure I kind of nail for you, like, this is where people can get stuck.
And this is in the pitching, when they actually start to create the material to send out, is where you find it.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know what, it's kind of on the line between research and pitching. It's right in that, like, right? Because it's like, I've done my research and I'm beginning, like, this is where things can get tricky. And because what we don't want to come across is, my dog died and I became an actor and now I'm happy. Like, that's not a vulnerable, right? So it's trite. First of all, it's trite. It sounds trite. And also, like, I'm a manager agent. Do I care that your dog died? Right? Like, how am I supposed to get engaged with that? Now, that being said, I have had people get very vulnerable in their emails, speaking about loss in their family, or speaking about having to move across country to take care of someone who is sick or something. And it actually worked, but it doesn't. Yeah, it resonates. But the reason it resonates is not because we're just gratuitously sharing, right? This isn't your best friend. You've never met this person. It's because you've given it a context for how it relates to your acting career in some ways.
Got you.
And all of those people ended up with great agents and managers, and all of those people got managers or agents who said back to them, "Why are you telling me this? You're doing this wrong." So I just want to make sure we are kind of buckling ourselves up for, if we do this right, someone's going to tell you did it wrong. You have to just be willing to be seen.
Yeah, because so that's a little bit polarizing. Like, if you're strong enough, if you're, as you said, if your red dress is striking, some people are going to hate it and some people are going to love it. It's going to attract some people and it's going to repel some people. What you're saying is you need everyone to stand up to a place where you either attract or repel, and not be in the lucid middle where nobody quite knows what they think.
Right. And that isn't, of course, and I guess we're not saying this to be like gratuitous or explicit, like to let me get the ones who like we're not doing that. That's not that either. Right.
No.
So the other place I see people get stuck is it's a little slippery. There's kind of some tech stuff that sometimes people get, so that can start like sending emails on certain dates and using a database, and that kind of can sometimes get some people. I always just say, just go slow, and that can make things a little easier, or find one accountability partner where you can talk it through before you click send. So that one's kind of like a little bit of a sticking. The big sticking point that I see, which is like an abundance problem, is making a decision.
Wow.
When you've got multiple offers. So my clients often will get I've had a client get 15 offers, and you can imagine like, oh my God, that's amazing. But then can you actually imagine being at home and knowing you have to say no to 14 people and yes to one? That is a real tricky spot, right? And so in the program, I give you like a way to break it down to see who you want to be with them. But just kind of briefly, one of the things that I think is so necessary is that's why I put so much weight on those meetings needing to be that you can be who you are. Right. Because I promise you, this young lady, when she was choosing between the 15 people, and by the way, there's nothing special, unique, or crazy wild about this person. Okay. She is just a person who followed the steps. I want to make sure we don't write stories like she must have had an MFA and she did this, and like cool your jets, people. Okay. So she knew as she was going to meetings, oh, it's probably not that one.
Right.
Oh, that one is a maybe. This one's probably a no. So she could kind of, so it wasn't like she sat down and was like, okay, now let me consider all 15. And it was because she had gone through this process of really making sure she showed up to each one of the meetings. She said multiple times, I went to every single meeting I got, and I went to every single meeting with an assuming that I would work with that person.
Great.
She said, I had to remind myself, so just imagine, she's had 5 meetings in a day one day.
Wow.
So she's just, I was like, what's also incredible is like, you can imagine like now when we're slowly kind of getting back in the world, people might not be able to do that because they'd be going in real life to meetings. But at the time, like it was just Zoom. She's like, I put on the outfit. It was just good because I was just going one to the next. It started to blend together a little bit, but I tried to make sure she goes, because it also helped her that they were blending together. Because she goes, so I really focused on the other person so I could remember what it was like to be with them because I was going
not the other person. Yeah.
Right.
So good.
Yeah. So those are some of the places, the making decisions, and then the capturing yourself into the email kind of
that
thing.
is so good. But because both of them have a commonality, which is you have to really know yourself, number one, and be really clear about what you need. Because as you said, if you're writing an email, there needs to be a clear point to what you're looking for. And if you are wanting to hone in on the right rep, you want to be clear about what that rep can do for you and how the partnership can work. So that's so powerful that you've been able to identify that, because I know so many actors now hearing that would be like, oh, where do I see? Well, they'll probably have to do the work to unpack what part of that process is a sticking point for them, but you've given them a really clear idea of what that can look like. Wow.
And Lola, I just want to, Lola, you just said something and I want to grab it if I can real quick, which is that agents, the actor you were before you started watching this is the actor who would have told a manager or agent, here's exactly what's going on with me right now. What a manager or agent needs to believe in is the future, your future, the fantasy of your future.
So good.
So throughout this journey, what we are selling someone on isn't the receipts of what you've done in your life, but how those receipts will do things for your future. Does that make sense? So how our credits are experienced. Yeah, we're using all of this to tell them, what is my future going to look like? Not where I've been, because that's like, that is to me the most transactional you can possibly be.
Oh my God.
Right? Like,
so
tell me that I have enough credits to be on your roster. Tell me that I can fit on your roster. Tell me that you don't have another young lady who looks like me. Like, that's so transactional. And so like 1998 wants their actors back. So come over with me in 2021 when the world has woken up to some things, I think. And we want to be really sell is a horrible word, but let them buy into your future, what you can do together. And the reason why I love this too is, hello, the person who can't see it, please don't ask me to have a meeting with you. Because if you don't see what I'm seeing here, then we are not a match anyway. Perfect. No, got it. Great.
I think really it's over. Like, I need to close it down, close up shop, like, we go home, because I've never heard anything so good in my whole life. You are literally saying, wow, every actor that came in here before, 30 minutes ago, were an actor who were selling what they have done and who they have been. What you are saying is switch it up and try and sell the future of who you want to be, where you want to be, where you want your career to get to. That is so good. But there's a caveat. You need to know that yourself, right?
Yes.
You have to.
That research we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have to know it and believe it in order to sell it authentically. Just like you said, that word sell only becomes inauthentic when you don't believe what you're selling. When you're like, I really wanted to be, on a red carpet. My goal is to be this. And they're like, well, I'm not sure. Look, is that really your goal? Or is that someone's goal that's passed on to you? That's so good. Oh my God, Brian, that was golden. That was golden.
I want to give everyone kind of a story that I think will help them a little bit, which is, this actress came to me and she was like, I don't know if I'm going to do this anymore. She was getting a little bit of success in voiceover and she was feeling like, I keep reaching out. I'm not hearing anything. She's a super funny lady and also is pretty, which sometimes those two things can be confusing to managers and agents. Like, you have to be weird looking to be funny or something, right? Which is not the truth. Right?
Funny girl. Yeah, you do.
So she's like, I don't know if I'm going to do this anymore. And she committed to saying, okay, I'm going to own my story where I've shown up and where I haven't. So what was so what was perfect, I would say, about her email and the way that she reached out is we now took that thing, which felt like the thing that people didn't understand. And that was the centerpiece for how she reached out to people.
Right.
People don't get that I'm funny because sometimes I look like XYZ 1, 2, 3. Like we probably use some actresses that are pretty or something like that, right? Like we really use that. So you might hear this in acting class where a teacher will say like, you know, that one beat you can't figure out unlocks the entire scene. So when you figure out that one beat, it'll unlock the entire scene. I often think that one thing that's held you back in your career is the thing that might unlock this entire process. Now, here's the one thing to be mindful of. Don't get too meta about this. Like representation is the one thing that's held me back. Like we can't talk about represent, like that. It's a little bit of like, no, that's not working. Like, no. So we have to find something else. Right. And then also I want to just kind of like, can I give you some like do's and don'ts for a second around this?
Please throw them my way. Throw them here.
Lola and I both care about how much you love acting and how passionate you are about it. Managers and agents do not. Now, let me make that clearer. They care, but every actor in the freaking world can say they're passionate about being an actor. So while it feels vulnerable to you, and it looks generic on the outside. Because no actor chooses acting because, oh, I just thought I'd have a hobby. Like you're really passionate about it, right? So be mindful of your passion for acting. Feeling vulnerable doesn't quite transact in the way that you actually are wanting to have this buy-in for the future. Because every actor who reaches out can say, I am passionate about this. I'm committed. I'm professional. Yep. Every actor who sent an email already said that to me. So that's like a don't. That's one of the don'ts for you, right? Do call out why you haven't reached out to them sooner, or what's been standing in the way. I had this beautiful experience where this woman, she has twins, and they're like 4 right now. And the first sentence of her email was, 2 little people got in the way of me reaching out to you sooner. See photo below. I mean, it helps that her twins are like the cutest people in the world. I mean, there's PS and there's a photo of her with her twins.
Wow.
And then she talked about where she was before she took a break from the business. She got 7 meetings, I think.
Wow.
And she got commercial and theatrical.
Wow.
So a willingness to own those pieces of our story is so important.
That's
I
so
think,
good.
I think I've hit that on the head a little too hard. Maybe I've hit that too hard, but hopefully you all got it.
But it's so good because actually what you've done beyond just, you know, being able to take stock of it, right? What you said is when you take stock and identify realistically, what's been holding me back? What's the sticking point? What's felt a bit uncomfortable? What have I heard people say over and over again? Let me use that.
Yeah.
And that's different, because what you're saying is you can gain power in that thing that you feel like is the deficit. You can twist it and be like, let me lead with that and see where that gets me. And I love that. So good.
Yeah. Yeah. And what it does is it makes you look so smart. It's kind of a trick in some ways. Like, oh, they're owning the question. Like when I looked at the resume, my question was the one that they answered in their email.
And then all of a sudden,
that's what I want to do.
Yeah. All of a sudden it's like, well, then I have no reason to say no. Or okay, well, then the next step, you've literally peeling away the onions of the nose, which is so good. Because what you've given, okay, I'm just going to do a really quick recap, because what's coming in my head right now is so good. Because what you said is when you're in the room, if you take stock of actually your own career and maybe your own CV and see some of the things that you haven't done, lead with that. Be authentic and be like, I can show you that I haven't had a lot of TV work and that's why I'm here. I can show you that, people get a bit confused because I'm pretty, but I'm also sporty. So like if you're leading with the things that people are like, I don't get it, you are answering the questions that are already in their head and making it easy for them to move on to the next step, which is so good.
Yeah. And remember that a doubting mind says no.
No.
So what I'm doing when I look at your resume is I'm finding the reasons not to meet with you. When I'm reading your emails, I'm finding the reasons I shouldn't meet with you, right? And so what you're doing in your way that you reach out is you're filling in the blanks, helping them to read between the lines of your resume. So good. And this way you can have resume pride, which I think a lot of people have resume shame. Like those are the things that I've been able to do. And then there's this other magical thing that I see people do so well, and I teach this inside of the program. So I'll give you kind of a taste of it, which is to own your almosts that you've had in your career.
Wow.
So I once had a client who went in to be a supporting role in a huge film. And I think like Harrison Ford or somebody was the other person in the film, right? And like we're already like, wow, she had an audition for that. That's enough. That's it. She didn't book it. Who cares? Not on her resume. If you look at her resume, no one knows. But you can talk about, Celine Dion called me indirectly to audition for Harrison Ford's next film, part of 20th Century Fox's series, The Hitchhiker, to play a lead role. Like, as a manager or agent, I go, my client didn't get that audition. Right. So we have to be mindful that the email or the first is a place to let them know those things that are not happening on the red, the things you haven't booked yet, because it just is a way to let them get what they would do with you tomorrow in some ways.
That's
right. And it doesn't have to be Harrison Ford either. It can be a much less famous thing to be like, I get called in directly to go in for this TV show. That's enough. Like, oh, you're getting in for that office? That's a hard office to get into. Wow, okay.
That shows what the connections you might already have. So the only question that comes up for me there, because I think that's an incredible point and such a, a string to your bow when actually communicating and creating, communication emails. But the part that I would then go question mark is agents already believe people sort of embellish what they've done, right? So you would have to then be authentic with that, right? That would be the caveat. Make sure it's a true thing, because I'm sure a lot of people
here's the one thing I'll say. Actors are usually falling on the side of too honest and discrediting themselves. So I worry about this very little. More often than not, you'll say, well, I don't think I should put it on my resume because they cut my scene. Them cutting their scene is their bullshit. You got the job, you did the job, it goes on your damn resume.
I love that.
That is about their film. We're not marketing the film, we're marketing you. My part was really small, so I don't know if it should be. That is not your job to deal with the fact that your part was small. You did the job, it goes on your resume. The footage is, no one's going to go, by the way, no one's going to go watch your bullshit. No one's going to go watch the student films you did 5 years ago and notice how big or small your role was. And now I'm not saying to lie about those things, but what I am saying is don't be afraid to say, I played a strong-willed mother whose children were going to be taken away by DTS or whatever it's called, DCS, in this film, Butthole Sisters. And I am so, and which is exactly in the wheelhouse of the roles I normally play.
Right.
That was a student film. No one cared. It was a student film.
So good.
No one cared. Right.
Because it helps. What I'm hearing is it just helps agents and managers, whoever you're writing to, be able to also see where you can fit and where they can fit and help you. It's all
remember.
Everything's all about.
Remember that the email is just like, we're like so excited, right? The email is just like, the email is, do I want to meet this person? And is this person living up to who they say they are? What we tend to do is to be really generalized in the way we reach out. I can't wait to reach my actor goals or bullshit. Like that's just not interesting. Right. And so by using specifics like the name of the casting director, the name of the production company, the name of the theater, the name of the director. Like I remember I was editing a woman's email yesterday and it says, I played alongside Emmy Award nominee, I forget the person's name, in da-da-da-da-da, like whatever. And you might be like, well, why would you even bother to mention the Emmy Award nominee? Because an Emmy Award is cool and they're a nominee and that's cool. The inherently is you're raising your stock by adding those specifics. And we might think well, I don't feel like I should add this. No, you're adding this, you're not lying at all. Think about the way that packaging is written. They're they use all the words to entice us. We want to entice this person so that they just want to meet with you. 100%. Everything's going to come out in the wash in the meeting. You're going to get they're going to ask questions about the things they had questions about in the meeting. 100%. So again, don't lie. But also I think that one way of staying small and not being vulnerable is actually by not adding specifics. So add every possible specific you can.
That is so good. And I can absolutely see that just being intriguing enough to get you the response. That's all you need to do. You take it one step at a time. The email needs to get you the response and get you in the room. And then when you're in the room, the next things you kind of pile on. And I know that you would be breaking that down to the letter for people in the course that you teach. So that is, it's just so incredible to imagine that. Okay. So you've blown everything out of the water. And I'm sure there's all the questions have been clarified, but let me just think okay, so what is the most effective tool to get, an agent's eyes on your material through email or social media? So what would be the thing that could get them to
No one's getting agent meetings in their DMs. So stop it. And if they are, they're getting it because they're pretty, not because they're talented.
Right.
Or maybe there's one really well-meaning manager or agent out there who is doing it. But I just feel like business is done in email.
Got you.
So social media can certainly get you followers and attention, and it can be a viable thing if a manager or agent cares about it. Plenty of them do not, but many of them do. And you can talk about that in your meeting. But if you're trying to do business, then do business.
Love that. Love that. And you've kind of broken down how to actually get your email from being generic to being, you know, attractive, because that's attractive, enticing, those words, you know, that they can scan it, because agents are getting thousands, I'm sure, in a week or a month, right? And they're just doing a quick scan to identify, is it worth it? Can I respond? Blah, 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 blah. And you've given a good rundown of the things that we can do, specificity being one of them, vulnerability being another, and being concise with what you're actually asking. So you've talked about the things that we can actually do in the email itself to get the response, whatever that is. Even the one thing I just want to say is, you know, this is like 3 units inside of my course. So I really am giving like a taste of it today. So I want to just be, the only reason I'm saying that is, if you decide to go do this on your own in some way, do not sound delusional is the trick. If you sound delusional, we are going to write you off. Delusional can go both ways. Delusional can go, my career is perfect and amazing. Don't you want to get on this train over here? And like, why do I need to get on the train? Your career is perfect and amazing. Right.
Delusional can also sound like, my cat died, my grandma's sick, I had to go home and live in the basement with my family for the past 6 months. It can be too vulnerable, right? So we just have to make sure that this is where I think a coach or someone can help, because this is where I want the authenticity. And then we just have to finesse that language so that it lands the right way. But I just want to make sure I just say that so that nobody goes out there and goes too much of the wrong direction.
100%, 100%. And you spoke about it as well, having an accountability partner, even if you don't have the wherewithal to go and find help in that way, just have somebody else have a look and want, you know, saying what you don't want to say or coming across in a different way. So that is so good. And you talked about the follow-up, you know, that the sort of success comes with the follow-up. So what is a good follow-up strategy that you see working, and to get through that idea of gatekeepers or no responses?
So I have a bit of an approach of, if there's a gatekeeper, like, I can't be bothered. That's a little bit like, if I'm going to have a place with, like, I've got 1,200 managers and agents in Los Angeles to reach out to. I've got 4 that have gatekeepers that are going to be in the way. I'm not going to bother. Like, bye. I got other people to talk to. Right. And there's a reason there's a gatekeeper, because probably the way I'm reaching out to you isn't going to work for you anyway. So I'm just going to make the assumption that you don't want to hear from me if there's going to be somebody in the door. So I just kind of am like, there's too many fish in the sea for me to worry about the ones that are nasty, or not nasty, but hard to catch. Let's say that. Right. So that's kind of my relationship to that. And when it comes to follow up, you know, I always like to, no one likes getting the email of, did you see the email I sent you last week? No one likes getting that email, because you feel caught. You feel like you did something wrong. Right? So you don't want to say that. Oh yeah, I did. Or like, shit, I didn't respond. Right? You don't want to say that. So you want to say something so much more generalized, or with what I like to call a positive and generous assumption about someone's behavior. So it might look like, hey, I wanted to bump this to the top of your inbox because I really would like to meet with you. And I realize, you know, maybe I didn't give you enough information in my last email. So here's another self-tape. Or I'm not sure if you prefer if we send a link to our profile. So I decided to include that now, or some version of doing that kind of stretch. Does that make sense? So you're helpful. You are there to be helpful. 100%. You are not asking for anything. You're just there to be so helpful, to make sure they have the information they need to make a decision.
So good. I love that. Yeah, that's very clear in how you speak. And just to touch on the point on the gatekeepers, I think it just speaks further to the point that you said, that when you believe that everything happens for your good, and that you've got, as you use that analogy of the stars, when you're looking at all the stars, it just means that if it's one's harder, it's probably not for you. So you can focus your attention on the ones that are going to be easier and more fruitful. Yeah. So I love that.
One thing that but Lola, I do want to say, like, what I've, for some of my clients who are in the UK, I will just say specifically, there's like, there can be multiple email addresses, and one is like the info at agency, and one is the director or the person's name. You're like, to which one do I send to, and all this stuff. And I realized kind of gymnastics we can do inside of our head around like, how do I send this out? I often just say, make it really explicit. Hey, Steve, I wasn't sure if this is the right email address to use for you. So I'm reaching you here. If there's a different email address I should use, please let me know. I certainly don't want to show up in the wrong inbox. And then you write your message.
So good.
And then the person can say like, yeah, you're the wrong person. Like you're acknowledging, instead of like trying to sneak under the radar, you're saying, hey, I'm not sure of the right way to do this because you don't have rules written everywhere on your website or whatever. So, and I really want to meet with you. So I took a stab at maybe this is the right place to reach you. If it's not, let me know and I'll certainly send this to the right place.
That's so good. I love that. I love that so much.
And you sound like an adult.
Yes.
Like, right?
Someone that someone wants to meet and have a chat with. I love it. You've broken down so much in that, and it's been so great to listen to and also be a part of. So I was going to ask, one thing that came to my mind is with actors and agents, there is so much there's so much, because it is a relationship that needs to be cultivated, right? It's a relationship that needs to be built. What would you say is the like one thing that you would say to an actor who was in a place of disadvantage, who felt like I've tried for so many years, it's not working for me, this is frustrating? What would you say to that person, and how would you help them see that it is a process that needs it's a cyclic process that you need to touch on again and again?
There is a manager and agent out there for you. They just haven't met you yet. And what we're going to need to do is get really, really clear on who you are, what you've done so far in your career, and what we see next as somewhere over the rainbow. What's next for this person in a way that they can understand it. So let's start really slowly, and let's just talk about some of the things where you really showed up for your career and it paid off. And I would just start with some very quiet wins and start there. And the other thing that I would say is, let us give ourselves the self-love and self-care that we need to start a process like this, acknowledging that we are in a human form on this planet who has had parents, where we have inherited feelings around people who have status, who are older than us, or we assume to be older than us in some energetic kind of way, or know more than we do, and that stuff is going to come up. I'll just use my number one tool if I can. So this is my number one tool. If you don't know what this is called a tori. It is Japanese. They are outside of Shinto shrines in Japan. And this is if you've seen these probably at a restaurant that's like appropriating Japanese culture. But so this arch is outside of a shrine. And what it is there for, this bright red orange, it's called vermilion, one of my favorite words, is there to say, hey, bitch, slow down before you cross this path, because you are walking from the mundane to the sacred space over here. Wow. So get yourself, come correct before you come on this side of this thing. Right. And what I like to think about is, if I'm reaching out to representation, I know it's going to bring up all my stuff. All my stuff that is in here is going to be brought up. So before I start going down the path of doing anything, I'm going to take 1 second to just go, I'm moving into sacred ground where I want to treat myself with love and compassion. And so let me do this a little differently. Maybe I'm going to set a timer and do it for 30 minutes. Maybe I'm going to shut down every single tab on my computer and take some notes in a notebook before I even begin to interact with technology. Maybe I'm going to say, I'm going to light this candle, and for the 20 minutes while that candle's burning, I'm working on this. So this might sound super woo-woo or like what I know is, if you run through this process, the end of it is not going to feel as resolute and beautiful as the actors that I've worked with who've done it this way, where when they work with this manager agent, they're like, yes, I am here. And they're so smart, they can go, I've been with them for 3 months and I'm not sure yet. Cool. Let's talk about how we need to have a conversation to see how it's going. So you don't end up with if you do it this way, it's not that you'll be so soft, you'll end up with a bad agent. You end up so fiercely smart and worthy. You are able to choose the right agent, allow them to choose you, and to decide how that relationship wants to look. And to me, that comes from clarity of who you are. Right. So that's what I would offer.
That is powerful. And that was so beautiful. I don't even think there's anything necessary to add to that. But, and I would say, like what you've just said there about, I think everything you said and the way that you help your actors find representation is from a place of power. And when you start off with good communication, a clarity on what you want, and an empowered sort of mindset, the relationship you foster is only going to have that as a foundation. And that, therefore, what you said, you won't feel like you can't communicate if your career is stirring to the left but you want it to stir to the right. You're always going to feel like you have a place at the table, you have a partner you can communicate with, and you have someone who's on your team. So that was just so good. So God. So Brian, if I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh, I need help, I need you, what is the freebie that you have for the actors today to really go deeper and learn some from you, at least a little bit of what you got going on?
Right. So I'll actually share that I believe that actors deserve representation because I believe that the world will be a better place when all the actors are working. And this comes from a very inherent, I feel that in the bottom of my feet when I say it, and it goes to the top of my head. So I created a free training. Yeah. So good. Take that in, please, Lola. So I created a free training, and it is a real training. It is an introduction class to the course that I've been talking about. And of course, in the free training, I'll give you the opportunity to decide if you want to be in the course, but this training stands alone. You will walk away with this with tons of action steps. So bring a notebook, and it is www.makeagentswantyou.com.
Oh, I love it.
I'm so proud of the URL. I'm so proud of the URL. And just so you guys understand, right? It's a recorded training, so you can schedule when you're going to watch it, or you can watch it immediately. It's makeagentswantyou.com.
That's so good. Well, it's going to be linked below, so that's not.
Oh, great. Perfect.
How great, how fantastic. We all want agents to be falling at our feet like your client with 15. Yes. What? So good. This has been such a blessing to me today. This has been so fun. Thank you, Brian, for brightening up my afternoon.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I hope that lots of new actors are kind of hearing this new thought and thinking about themselves and feeling really empowered. So I just really want to appreciate you for bringing together all of us to have these kinds of conversations, and wish you just so much luck with everything you're doing. I'm so glad that we're connected.
I'm trying to give you a big hug, but I can't. It's virtual.
Yes.
Thank you, Brian. You have the best rest of the day, and everybody jump into Making Agents Want You now.
Bye-bye.